All right, so tonight I decided it was time to take a second look at this WattCycle battery. There was a few things I kind of skipped over when I did the first video, and the first one was communications here with the 6000 XP. I did run into one small problem, but I've seen the problem before with the HumSync batteries also, which I wonder if there is something in common with maybe the BMS in here. So after we get done taking a look at the communications and how easy it was to set up, and the one problem that I ran into, and I do have a message out to them hoping that they'll get back with me, then we're going to open the case up, take a look at what it looks like inside. All right, so here's the screen on the 6000 XP. Now, this was pretty easy. I went in here and basically just went over to setting for battery, go into the battery setting, and from there I picked lithium iron phosphate and communication protocol 1. Now I noticed there was several of them that worked just fine, but one seemed to work. I don't know if I would call it the best, but it seemed to work pretty good. So I put it on 1, and I've tried several others, and they all come up with the same results. So once you do this, then you will notice that what will happen is it will come up with several different things. First of all, you're going to see the voltage. And so you're going to get the battery voltage at 53.5. And then you're going to get the state of charge, which it's 80% today. And with all the clouds we had today, that's pretty cool. And then the next one you're going to get is what's actually being pulled out of it. And it's 0.35 kilowatts. So we got 350 watts being pulled out right now. And then the next one is, this is where the problem comes in. This is the amp hours of the battery. And this is showing 2.00 kiloamp hours, which is 2,000 amp hours. Now, what's really strange about this is this device is also connected over through the COM device here over to my solar assistant. And so I'm going to switch the screen over and show you the solar assistant. And that should show up on the screen right here now. Now, what you'll see from this screen is that the solar assistant is showing 20,000 amp hours. All of the other details are correct. It is a 314 amp hours of the maximum charge, the maximum discharge, the voltage, the percentage of charge, and it doesn't affect the performance or how the battery works. I do have it plugged into the CAN port, the RS485 CAN, so I haven't seen any issues with that. And like I said, all the different communications work just fine, with the exception of that one number. So looking at the battery itself, I've tried multiple different settings on here. This is the one that seems the CAN communication that seems to be working. And it works with type 0, type 1, type 4, 5, 6, several of them down in that zone. But one seems to be the appropriate one for it, 1 or 0, and both of those seem to work the same. And they both report that 20,000 within Solar Assistant and 2,000 on the EG4 6000. I also saw this reported by another, like I said, for HumSync, another YouTuber, where reported the same issue on the HumSync battery. So either way, this is a heck of a great battery. So now what we're going to do, other than this one problem, and I'm sure this is one thing that they'll get resolved, is we're going to take this battery and I am going to lay it down here on the floor, and we are going to open it up and take a look inside. All right, so as you can see from here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this battery off, and that will stop the flow of power into it. I'm going to break the breaker, and I'm going to turn the power switch off. Now that should allow the 6000 XP to fall back to either grid mode, or if it's using battery comms at this point, I don't remember where I left it set up, or it'll fall to the other batteries to pick up the slack, which either one is fine with me. This will not take long. Now I'm going to disconnect the quick connects on these so that the battery is completely isolated from the system. All right, now, thought about this quite a bit. This thing is really heavy, so what I'm going to try to do is just lay it down on top of this dolly and pull the cover off. The trick here is, and I'm going to show you, the wheels kind of get in the way of the case, and in order to get the case off, you have to basically take the wheels off to get to it. So I'm going to lay this like this, which creates a nice platform for us to work on. And I can bring this right over here, right above it, bring you in a little bit closer for a zoom view. And now we have some screws all the way around the edge, but we've also got these wheels here on the back. So these wheels cover up one of the screw covers. So we're going to start by taking them off. They look like 10 millimeter screws, and they are. So we're just going to loosen them. There's 4 screws for each one of these. So it's very unfortunate that these were put in directly through over top of that screw. But at the same time, it's not a major issue. All right. Okay, so there's those. Now we need the screwdriver, and we are going to go around the case. There are screws on the side of the case. Across the top of the case, and this side here. Little ladybug, and then across the bottom, of course, which is why we removed the legs. And in order to lift it up out of there, I think I'm going to try using the screws that came with it to hook it to a wall, screw them in a little bit, and see if I can just lift it up out of here. So on first glance, we can see over on this side, the bus bars are complete copper, full-size copper bus bars. Look like they're tinned. And they are coated for protection all the way to the batteries themselves and back. So in order to get to the cells, we're going to need to take off the protective coating, which this has 4 little screws holding that on. All right, so here we see, seems to be pretty typical for today's builds, but it's amazing how far these have come. Each of the leads are connected with screw ends. It's not, they're all labeled B1, 3, 5, 7, and of course the odd numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It looks like on 1, 5, and down here on 15 we have, and on 12 we have sensors on them all. So I'm assuming those are temperature sensors. Now all of the cables are nicely zip tied underneath these protective brackets, protecting them from any impacts from above. Now, I don't think that would be too much of an issue because, first of all, there's a protective coating here, but second of all, this piece is actually inset in here and held by these rails on the top, so it is floating above it. So it could take some kind of impact and still be in pretty good shape. And the only real risk there would be that if it was such a hard impact that it actually punctured this board. And this is a hard board, hard plastic type board. It isn't just your regular flimsy plastic light metal thing. All of the release valves are exposed. There's plenty of room on all 4 sides of the battery for it to actually get airflow and to absorb any impacts that may happen. The other thing that I've noticed is that all of the battery terminals inside the top up here are all connected, are glued in place, and they've also got marks on them that they've quality marks on them. Really nice build. I can see the barcodes in here. I'll have to look up what the barcode types are and see what kind of cells they are. I'll get some pictures of that and insert that into the video. The ends on both ends here are welded, and then it looks like the battery cells, the rows of the cells are put in together and bolted down. They're put in this way and set down in here at 2 rows at a time, or 2 rows, I'm sorry, 1 row here and 1 row here. So this comes in and out as a complete set, which makes sense because these are welded together, and then the 2 that connects them is screwed in together. And there's even a nice pad here. If I had anything to worry about, it's going to be this pad is from the bottom of the case. An impact there could get through there and cause a short to the case, but it's a real nitpick. There is a good 1/2 inch of space, and there is a foam padding, good thick foam padding in there preventing that. So now let's take a look a little closer over here at the BMS side of things. Okay, here we are on the BMS side of things, and it is a WattCycle branded BMS. The back of the screen is there. You can see all of the connectors are color coded to run up into the battery. Both sides of that, and they're both strapped down underneath here, nice and firmly. All the wires are well. Even these down here are not left loose. They're zip tied in place. All the QC controls marks are on all the connectors, and there is glue on the ones like this one here that look like there may be some possibility of them coming loose. You can see there's another one over here that has some glue, some of that tacky glue on it. Funny thing is not all of them have that tacky glue, just some of them. And it does make it feel a little safer with these plastic coatings on here reaching in here, but I do question I would have to check the size of these bus bars. Are 300 amps. Those are huge bus bars, and I'll have to get the size of that and see how thick those really are. They are, see if I can find a tape measure here so we can get the size of those tape measure here on these bus bars. So you can see here those are 22 millimeters, or is that 7/8 of an inch wide, and it is hard to say how thick those are. I would say probably 3 or 4 millimeters wide. So I don't know the math. If you're familiar with the math of what these bus bars would support, put it in the comments for me. That would be really great. But the build looks really good. I mean, there's even zip ties along the side here to hold things in place to make it nice and clean for all the buttons. The glue on any spot that looks like it might come loose. Plenty of room around the edges for everything. The welded bars between the cells does have the proper space in there for a little bit of movement to prevent them from just causing any damage. If there was some shrinking, all of the vents are exposed where they can get to them, and you can easily see them. The barcodes are accessible. See if I can get that one to focus. There's one, and you can see them all quite clearly. And hopefully from one of these I'll be able to get a clean scan out of it. There we go. There's that one. There's that one. So as you can see, that's pretty good. It looks like everything is all in line here. I don't really see a whole lot of things that really concern me about the build. It looks pretty good. If you notice anything, please put it in the comments, but it looks like it's a nice build. If this was standing up, this would be down and this would be up. So these cells would be stacked this way. They do look like they're put in two stacks of 8 cells vertically. And other than that, looks like a good build. All right, I'm going to put this thing back together and get it back into service. Hopefully this gives you a little helpful knowledge about the WattCycle 314 amp hour wall mount battery, the great deals that they have, how to hook up communications with the 6000 XP and the 12,000 XP are very similar, and most of the other EG4 inverters work exactly the same, so you shouldn't have any problems there. Communication works really well. The fast connects are really good, working straight to Busbars, and everything seems to be working. I've included a chart right here of how I've been cycling this battery for the last couple of weeks. I run it every day, as you can see, practically down to about 20% and then back up to 80 to 100% every single day. Just making sure that it's going to cycle, that it holds true, that the percentage and state of charge is holding right. It seems to be holding pretty well, even with the DIY battery and the EG4 battery bank, both of which are 15 kilowatt hour battery banks also. So the 3 of them at 46 kilowatt hours have cycled pretty consistently for about 10 to 12, 15 days now, from 20 to 80%, 20 to 100%, depending on how much sun I have. Everything on my system is pretty much automated. The bit miner comes on at night, discharges the batteries down to the 20%, which is why you'll see the nice clean cutoff at 20%. And then the upcharge basically depends on how much sun there has been. There hasn't been a lot of charge, so the bit miner's been shutting off early in the morning and letting the batteries just charge all day, and then it comes back on at night when it's cool. When there is a lot of sun, the fans in the solar shed here kick on, and the battery and the charger and the bit miner will run for much further into the afternoon to make sure that we have enough battery bank to supply the power there. The nice thing about this is it allows me to use the batteries to their full capacity every day to run the bit miner and to store that power. But if I have a hurricane, I have a huge solar system that I can plug directly into the house and offer a complete off-grid solution. And that is even with my grid-tied system in the house being shut down because the grid is out. So hopefully this helps. The links are down below if you're interested in purchasing one of these. And if you have any questions, let me know. They seem to be one of the best deals on the internet. And right now, the quality is really good. And I hope that this is helpful for you. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll talk to you on the next one.